All right, now we're going to turn back toward our local hometowns and focus in on some drought. After a wet start to our year, drought had been creeping back up into our region. According to the drought monitor maps released on Thursday, most of our Illinois counties are experiencing some dryness, even some moderate drought in places like Whiteside and Carroll counties. Over in Iowa, most of our hometowns are abnormally dry, but it hasn't tipped over into anything extreme. In both Iowa and Illinois, there is some sort of dryness in about 60% of each state. And the rain that we got last week helped, but how much of a difference did it make? And what can we expect for the summer ahead? For those questions, we turn to Dr. Justin Glisson, Iowa's state climatologist. Dr. Glisson, thank you so much for being back with us. How much of a difference did last week make?
Yep, great question. Nice to be back with you, Shelby. So you look at May for the Quad Cities and over into the Illinois counties, top 10 driest Mays going back into the late 1800s. So this was after the sixth wettest April on record. So the pendulum swinging back and forth with the first 2 weeks of June and the rain that we've seen over the last 7 days across the Quad Cities, anywhere from 3 to 5 inches. We've gone from the eighth driest to the fifth wettest first 2 weeks of June. So that pendulum is really swinging back and forth.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot too of like we had such a dry winter going into such a wet April back to a dry May. It has really been a pendulum. And one of the reasons why we are keeping such a close eye on this is because of how dry it's been in some of these really big corn producing states like Nebraska and Kansas and Colorado, where they're really feeling the impacts. But correct me if I'm wrong, that same extreme dryness has not been present in Iowa or Illinois yet this growing season, correct?
Not to that degree, correct. So if you look at the Western Corn Belt, the Western Ag Belt in general, much drier than the Central to Eastern Corn Belt. And this goes along with cooler temperatures, in fact, across the Eastern Corn Belt, which has also helped mitigate any kind of dryness or stress that we would see with warmer temperatures that we've seen over the recent few weeks. So we're doing pretty well here in Iowa and over into Illinois and the I-states in general.
There were some questions of a so-called flash drought the first week in June, so now about 2 weeks ago. You had parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin, even the Dakotas and Iowa that were worried about this. Did we see this type of rapid onset drought?
We were seeing it in soil moisture conditions. We were seeing it with temperatures upcoming and low dew points with lack of moisture. The Gulf of Mexico opened wide up, moisture transport north. We really mitigated that rapid onset drought. It's just like when we call drought meetings in parts of the state that are very dry, the faucet just happens to turn back on. So we really lucked out from Illinois into Iowa into drought conditions that were going to form over, several weeks because of very dry soil moisture profiles and that lack of precipitation. We staved it off with this recent rainfall.
Well, I'm glad you brought up soil moisture. Even with things drying out recently, how is our soil looking?
Yep. So prior to the rainfall and the active pattern that we've been in, you look at 100 years of data, we would classify the Illinois counties and over into eastern Iowa as the fifth percentile. So the five driest years on record, including 2026, for deeper soil moisture profiles. So with the 3 to 5 inches locally in heavier amounts, depending on where you are, we really resupplied soil moisture profiles. So looking at satellite products and even modeled products, we're in the near normal territory, not too wet, not too dry, the Goldilocks zone, as we like to say. So this is great news in terms of replenishing soil moisture as vegetative demand does increase and as we get into the warmer periods of the year. But we do need timely and near normal rainfalls to really help stave off drier conditions that we could see in July when we do get warmer.
Okay, well, you bring up yearly rainfalls, and I'm thinking back to when you joined us this past winter to talk about Iowa's snow drought and how little snowfall we experienced, not only this year, but the last few years. And now that we're into summer, are we feeling those impacts?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you think about soil moisture profiles with a lack of snowpack. We had a deeper frost depth, but we did get wet to start the year, and particularly in April, as I mentioned, sixth wettest on record. Supplying soil moisture profiles was with much needed surplus moisture. And then we get into a very dry May. We start to extract that soil moisture. So the wintertime conditions really do help supply or give us surplus moisture as we begin the growing season if we do get dry as we did in May. So that lack of snowpack, no moisture to melt, that's where we start to build up those deficits that we saw in eastern Iowa and in the Illinois counties as well. Luckily, with the last 7 days of rainfall, we're doing a lot better at chipping away those longer term deficits that we've seen since 2020.
Yeah, and we'll continue to see how the rest of the rain coming in later this week might impact that as well. Dr. Glisson, thank you so much for your time and shedding some light on this. We'll talk to you again later on this growing season.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure, Shelby.
And hey, if you guys at home want to share this story, you can always find our online version up at WQAD.com. You can also check out what Dr. Glisson had to say about our snow drought. Just click on the As Seen on TV tab.